Following up after the game this past week, I think my assessment after the game was accurate. Played extremely poorly, and the really frustrating, obviously, in relation to what this team's capable of. So disappointed in that, and anxious to move forward. Obviously, on a short week like this, it's a very, very quick turnaround, and so it requires not just from a game planning standpoint, but even from a practice standpoint in terms of transition in this week. It's the good part is the fact that we have a kind of an opportunity to get that taste out of our mouth. The bad part is that obviously you would have liked to have played better this last week, kind of leading into this one, and especially with Colton's situation, to have a little bit more time. And but that's the way that it is, and we're excited about this next opportunity. Western Kentucky is they're playing really well right now. Very physical team. Unique situation in the sense that very much like our football team, who's had a significant number of four-year starters because Coach Taggart coming in the same time that I did, and a lot of our players have been, their guys, my guys, have been playing against each other for a while now, and we've had just some unbelievable games. And when I say unbelievable, I do mean it in that sense. It's just been unbelievable in relation to how the last three games have played out. So it should be an exciting game. Questions?
Coach, let me ask you about, how did you guys respond to Sunday and again yesterday?
Well, again, this group's been together for a while, and they were frustrated also, and some of that frustration even kind of bore itself out a little bit. I think that there's a recognition that obviously that all the things that from missed assignments to lack of fundamentals to all the things that we kind of preach, and we try to take great pride in those things. We know that those are parts of winning, and those things have to be a part of us. We can't just we've got some good players in our program, but we're not to that point to where we're name top 5 team and say that we're just going to show up and even if you play poorly that you're going to have a chance to win. We've got to play well, and we didn't. There's not been a change in schemes. These guys have kind of grown up together again, and we did not play well, and that's my responsibility. It's all my fault. I took it afterwards, and will continue to take it because we didn't play well, and I'm not out there playing, but the reality of it is that my responsibility to make sure that we are playing well, and that's kind of what's frustrating about it is the fact that I've seen this team play well, and overall I've always been pretty pleased, not necessarily with perfect execution at times, but just the way that we've played the game. The discipline, those aspects, we've generally played really, really well. And we might not have had the athletes, or we might not have been mature enough, or some of those other things, but at least those things I could look up and say that we did these things. There are not a whole lot of things that from Saturday that I could kind of check the box on, and I was concerned about it going in the game, and I mentioned it Saturday after the game. Was we practiced very poorly, and if you practice poorly, then you're going to play poorly. And again, that's my responsibility to get us to practice well. So.
In the past, you talked about ignoring the noise outside of the program, and a lot of that noise was positive going into this year. Going into this week, it may be a little bit more negative. Is that something you talk to your kids about? As
sure.
Staying focused.
I always talk about ignoring all those peripheral things. Because everybody's going to have, why we played poorly this Saturday, everybody's going to have their own reasons. There's again, and it's never one thing because it's different with everybody, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not making excuses. I'm just dealing in realities, and the reality is that it's generally a confluence of a lot of different things. It might have been a hangover after Baylor for some. It might have been apathy or complacency based off how we'd played against Tulane. It might have been frustration, that it set in relation to the expectations of the team. And expectations are really an interesting thing because sometimes they can drive you, and then sometimes when those expectations aren't met, they can be a negative. And and again, it's not one thing because it's different with every kid. But there was obviously something with most everybody, and that's part of the reason we didn't play well. And so we've got to conquer those things. And, again, from their freshman year on, when everybody doubted the team and all those other kinds of things, and rightfully so. I mean, that's kind of part of it, just like rightfully so now they're going to have questions, is now you have a chance to respond or react. And react is whenever you don't know something's going to happen, right? Respond is whenever you know something's going to happen and you're prepared for it and you handle it.
Ultimately, your number one goal is still out there when you start conference play.
I got asked that question earlier, too, by another media member earlier this week, which is already pretty, I guess, with the amount of stuff that we've already done this week, it seems like it's later in the week, and it's not. Yeah, and that's something that eluded us last year. It was one of our main goals. We've got to obviously focus on that, but we need to focus on being 1-0 too to some degree, because they're already. Again, when you have a goal that's out there and you haven't met the goal, sometimes that goal becomes the focal point, and in that focal point, it relegates maybe other games to maybe not having as much significance, and I don't believe that way. I want to be 1-0 this week. You've heard me say it 1,000 times because that's the way that I am. I want our football team to act like that also. And, so my hopes are that if there were 1 or 2 or 10 or however many that were all of a sudden just focused on the conference, we got a nice wake-up call. And we've got a good football team coming in here. We've got a national TV audience. I mean, I don't know what else you need to motivate you than what we've got in front of us. Based off of Sunday's practice and based off Monday's practice, I'd say we're back, and that's good.
You talked about losing your team Saturday night. Where is my team? Do you feel like you have seen them now reemerge in those last 2 days of practice?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it took a game like that to give us a good wake-up call. But I don't think there's any question that it's adversity is a great blessing. It's a great blessing because it refocuses you on the task in hand, and I think this group, again, based off of practice, and I'm kind of believe what I see. As I've said before, I tend to try to kind of live in what is reality rather than what I'd hope for or what I don't hope for. We've got some significant adversity, certainly stuff that was very, very unexpected, and that's why it makes it very frustrating on everybody, is that, again, this group has played together for a long time, and so consequently, as coaches, as players, as a fan base, you tend to start seeing that you're going to see these things every week. And I've also, told the team that there's time periods when all of a sudden there's games where you just don't play well. As a football team, we've had ours now. Okay, we've had ours, and that doesn't need to happen again. It's the other team's got players, and obviously Tulane did a better job of coaching and playing than we did.
Did you feel like once you let the game settle in and went home and thought about it and everything, that finding your team, that you needed to do something about coming back? I know you challenged them after the game Saturday night, but was there anything that you did as the head coach, like talking to them or reminding them that the number one goal is still out there, or was it just a matter of a lot of these guys just kind of having their own gut checks internally? No,
I as I've said before, I talk very openly with them. I'm very pointed with them in terms of. The nice thing is everything that's a problem is fixable, and but I'm very pointed with them. I was very pointed after that game. I'm very pointed after wins too. Yeah. Last year, you even asked the question last year after the Arkansas game that I didn't seem to be all that thrilled, and because again, the validation was going to come the next week against Auburn, and that was the challenge for them last year. And this is obviously a different circumstance, but the reality of it is that I kind of say what's on my mind, and that way I try to maintain credibility with the players. When that way they know there's no agendas, or I'm not real big on the coach speak. I just kind of tell it the way it is.
Hey, Coach, I kind of peeked in on the Navy game with Kentucky this past weekend for about a quarter. They were on game day or whatever. But it didn't take long to figure out that Antonio kid has been a beast the last couple of weeks.
Oh, he's been a beast for a while. Yeah, he's an exceptional running back. He's got great balance, great quickness, physical guy that it's hard to get him off balance. And they do so many things to get him the football, and are creative in ways of getting him the football, because he's also an exceptional receiver coming out of the backfield. And so he's certainly a guy that is a focal point of their offense, and rightfully so. They've built the offense around him, and the impact that he has on every ball game that he's played, not just this year but last year, is significant.
I think I read somewhere where they're leading the country in turnovers right now. Do you think that's more because they're trying to go over the top, or they're just being sloppy and not very disciplined right now, or that's something certainly keep an eye on?
I mean, obviously, we've had 6 fumbles this year, right? 5 of them on the special teams. And, a lot of the interceptions have come when we're trying to make plays. And I think that when they obviously had some problems with turnovers against Tennessee, but it's an aggressive game plan, because, again, you're trying to make sure that in those kind of games you've got to find ways to make plays, because from a talent standpoint, the other team's probably got more talent than you do. And so consequently, you've got to find other ways to create the momentum. And that means your risk aversion, it goes down. You're going to – everything that you got to throw at them if you're wanting to try to win. And Bobby is going to try to win games. And so I think that some of their turnovers have been results of just fundamental things, like a lot of them end up being. But a lot of it has just been, how aggressive are you wanting to be? And turnovers are a huge part of the game, and you have to eliminate them. And yet I do understand that every year, again, statistics can become tremendously skewed based off when do these things happen. And I think that has to be kept in context also. At that point in time, Tennessee was moving the football pretty much at will. And so if you're the other side, you got to keep up. And that's what, Coach Petrino was trying to do, is keep up.
They have a lot of returning starters, or 4-year guys who've been in the program, and so they've done a lot of things offensively. I know they have a new quarterback, but do you see a lot of Petrino thumbprint on these things, and he's changed a lot of things from in the we go all the way back, obviously, to when he was at Louisville, because I was head coach in the Army at the time, and he's running his offense. There's no holdover from last year. Willie Taggart, the former head coach, who's now at South Florida, was Stanford. Identical to Stanford. All the motion tight ends, motion fullbacks, all these different, even having offensive linemen in the backfield. I mean, it was just identical to Stanford's offense. This is identical to what Bobby's always done. This is what he was doing at Arkansas, and good for him. This is he's obviously had great success with the system, and they're continuing. I think as you move through the season, you see a few more things kind of being added. But they've already got quite a bit in terms of the things that they do, and so we've got to be prepared for this significant multiple offense, and knowing that they're going to continue to add some things that they've done in the past. And so we've gone back to all of our Arkansas breakdowns and all those other kinds of things, to kind of see what direction might they head next. prepare for Kawan Jakes at quarterback for every year you've been here, and now you move on to Dowdy. What are some things that he does well, and is he kind of still like finding his footing in the starting
No, I
role?
think he's, I think every quarterback goes through a transition in a new system to where you're becoming more comfortable. And so every game you see that comfort level improving, I think. But I think he's better than Jakes. He's got a stronger arm. He's more, I think, a more accurate thrower than Jakes was. And so, he can push the ball down the field. And Bobby's always really enjoyed pushing the ball down the field. He's and so I think that he's a perfect fit for Bobby's system in terms of what he likes to do.
Is it Brown's job to lose now, or Williams, or how does the quarterback situation play out?
Oh, everything's always competitive. We're never going to take competition off the table. I think that Brayley's understanding of the offense is significant. Hasn't always had a chance to be demonstrated, but he understands how to move and maneuver people. I wish Brayle was a little healthier, and because he still does not have the pace on the ball that he had in preseason camp. But he is very similar to Colton in terms of his pocket presence, and he's got a lot of the intangibles. I don't know if you noticed after he threw the touchdown pass late there in the Tulane game, and even though there wasn't a lot of things to celebrate, I don't know if anybody noticed our sideline. Brayley's a very, very popular player and he's a tremendous competitor, much like Colton. And so I think our team has already rallied up behind Brayle, and that makes this transition obviously an awful lot easier because of the fact that they know how competitive he is, and they know that his will to win, his will to prepare has always been tremendous. I wished he was a little healthier, but that's something that we've got to deal with. Brian has been as impressive a young quarterback as I've ever had, and I've had a bunch, but most of it's because his willingness to be coached. I've never had a quarterback pick up some of the nuances and intricacies of the offense as fast as he has, and even I mentioned earlier in the season about that. Even the older quarterbacks were so impressed with how fast he's picked things up, and he's still, there's still an awful lot to learn. Obviously, he has a tough time sometimes after, of being able to hit the clear button, which is a good sign in terms of if he has a bad ball, then sometimes that can impact the next play, and those are things that he just has to continue to grow up in. But is he completely functional in the offense? Probably not completely, but probably much better prepared than the other freshmen that I've ever been around.
Status of Ham?
Jerron practiced a little bit yesterday. I'd say very, very doubtful. If it was a Saturday game, then I'd say he was probable. But I think at this point in time, he's doubtful. I think Rashawn Caesar will be probable, and everybody else other than Colton obviously we're pretty healthy.
Coach, in the past you talked about your special and your unique relationship with Colton. Saturday night, Sunday morning, how difficult was that for you to just kind of put that together? What had happened to him and the fact that you had lost him?
Yeah, it's you knew at some point in time that obviously that was going to end, and I hate that it ended this way for him. It's just, I'm not talking about from a team's perspective, but obviously, again, coached the guy for as long as I have, went through kind of the ups and downs with him in terms of, him being a young player and making mistakes and also being with him whenever he made great plays. And so you had a chance to really kind of watch them kind of grow up from being, a boy to a man during this time frame. And so any time that a player gets hurt, I empathize. Because of what I kind of went through. I went through the same things, and so I kind of understand it. And so you just, it's tough. You have to have a next man up mentality in terms of a coach or a player. And and so we're prepared to have that next man up mentality as a team. These kind of things happen. This is this is a violent game, and things can happen. It's part of the great challenges of it is that you got to kind of pick yourself up and get back up. And for Colton, the 6th-year possibility, which I know that's been floated out there, he doesn't meet any of the benchmarks to get that, and so that is just completely doubtful. That's highly unlikely that there's going to be any kind of change in that because he doesn't meet any of the benchmarks. So to get that 6th year, so we're going to, put him in a coaching jersey and let him start kind of helping with Brian and signaling plays on the sidelines, which gives us another signal guy, which is a wonderful thing in relation to being able to trust the guy. And obviously with he was elected as a team captain for the last 3 years, and so there's an emotional side to this thing also, and that we have to overcome. And so it'll be good that he's still around the team for those kind of things also.
It's probably a stupid question, but I've heard so many Warhawk fans say, well, they should have just held him out until it was 100%. Maybe this wouldn't have happened. But, of course, that's 20/20 hindsight.
Well, we're not, yeah, there is. I mean, it's a fine line. We're going to base it off whether we think the guy can play and help us win. But more than anything else, we're going to base it off of whether our doctors say that he's capable of playing. And I'm not a doctor. I don't make medical decisions. Okay, we're not ever going to force a decision in relation to that. But if a guy is cleared in relation to that and he is functional, then again, I understand kind of, but that kind of goes back to what I said earlier a little bit about which game's important. Is it all about conference, or I just don't want to think. I don't want our team to ever kind of get to that point. And again, I think that it starts tearing at the fabric of kind of the program when you're not talking about being 1-0. If that's the case, and do you take every kid that can help you win and do you redshirt them because it'll just get better? There's a fine line, and I understand some of those kind of things. And anytime that you have adversity and frustrations, then everybody's going to have their own little take on this and that. And again, as I said earlier, it's generally this confluence of everything, right? I'll use the same word twice, I guess.
What happened to Caesar? I never saw him ever physically down.
He's got a little upper body injury, and so, and again, with a short week in terms of practice time, and obviously the offense is going to transition a little bit. One of the things that happened, as I mentioned, with Colton in the first quarter against Oklahoma, and kind of what happened, there were some things that all of a sudden you maybe weren't as comfortable doing anymore. Probably the blessing in that early first quarter injury to him, the silver lining, I guess, is that we've already kind of had to kind of go through some changes with the offense. Haven't been pretty, but we've already kind of had to start transitioning away from some of those kind of things. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden there's going to be a brand new offense out there. But, what you do within the offensive system, how much the quarterback is asked to do. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to ask significant things out of Brayle, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying there's, what your exposures are, those things change a little bit. And we've already kind of had to go through several transitions through the course of the season already along those lines because of just the nature of, things.
Coach, I know that offensive line's probably gotten the speech already that they've got a little bit more protecting to do. And obviously Western Kentucky's going to give you a very aggressive first quarter getting after that quarterback.
Yeah, there's no question that obviously with you're always going to come after a young quarterback, right? That's textbook, which is right. That's why everybody does it. And then obviously we did not perform very well up front in the offensive line this last week. You can say that about the whole football team though too, because we had some busted routes, we had some bad throws, we had a number of things that were impacting us. but our offensive line did not play very well, and I know that's the huge challenge for them now. And they'll rise up, they'll step up. It's a great group of young men, and they'll step up, and they had their mulligan, and so.
You talked about the offense and the transition they'll have to make. Going into fall camp, you said they played with a double from a year ago.
Mhm.
A lot of that had to do with just the way that Colton's so cerebral and everything that he's been able to do. Will it be scaled back a little bit and maybe see more watered down version?
Yeah, I think it has to be scaled back, and this is the difficult thing sometimes. Is you had Colton and Brayle, which were both very, very intellectual guys. I mean, as I've said before, in some things, Brayle picked up things faster than Colton on some things, but the caveat in that now is you've got Brian Williams. Now you got a true freshman quarterback, and the offense can only be built around not necessarily the slowest learner, but that most inexperienced guy within that learning curve, and so obviously it's got to water down, because otherwise you got to think in terms of what your two deep is functionally in rather than just your first group. You want to build your offense around those guys that can impact, because that's silly not to utilize guys' talents. But the reality of it is, when it comes to the whole system itself, then it's got to be built around your whole two deep and whether the whole two deep can function, because you never know about an injury. And so some of those things obviously in our two deep have changed. From an injury standpoint, the nice thing I think though is we've got Jairus Edwards and Centarius Donald both back and healthy, and it's been a long time for us on that. And those two guys are impactful too, and we've missed them, over a period of time. And it's and so you've got you lost some chess pieces and you gained a couple chess pieces, and so now you're just reworking the board.
That was my next question. With Brayle not being 100% with his throwing because of his injury, how much do you need the running game to rise up? And I know that Jairus has always kind of held that number one spot, but for Centarius to be number two right now, after just being cleared for almost 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
guys like Devontae and Mo, who I feel like have been healthy for the most part.
Right, they
for
have.
him to get to the point where he's already number two. I mean, I know you talked about how much of a workhorse he is, but have you challenged the running game and those guys in that room to really need to rise up at this point?
Well, I think you kind of challenge them every week along those lines. Tabby, I think the game is, there's not very many teams out there that can just go out there and impose their will. There's some out there in college football that can impose their will because of just the unique talent that they have, or talent and maturity at a position. But for most everybody else, it's kind of a little bit based off of what is the defense going to let you do. It's hard to run the ball, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago when we had a difficult time running the football, and I was asked that question because, again, if they know the quarterback, when Colton wasn't going to run, then all that read zone stuff and all those other kind of things, those things kind of go out the window because they've always got that extra player because they can man everybody else up and have an extra player that you can't block. And it gets hard to run the ball when that guy's sitting right there all the time. So we'll have to we'd love to have balance, but we're also not necessarily going to get into one of those situations to where balance is great, but balance has got to work. If you're just forcing the run and they've got an extra hat and you're gaining a yard every time, then balance isn't good. And so we'd like to be in that balance mode. It's nice to have those running backs back because I do think that it impacts us considerably. It makes everybody's life a lot easier when you've got that kind of experience and that kind of talent. But we'll have to just kind of wait to see how the game plays out, and that's the challenge right now. And I think in college football every week is certainly more so than it was 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago for that matter. The game's changed that dramatically to where you have an idea about what you're going to see. We were well prepared, I think, for what Tulane did to us. We didn't handle it very well, and it was a very unique deal what they did. But we had worked it. We had repped it, so there wasn't any excuses along those lines. But college football is such a transitionary thing each week that it makes it even more that impactful when you have a mature group of guys out there.
How does this change the overall game plan? I mean, the defense, do they have to do something to where maybe take more time off the clock or something so that the offense can get some rest? And how do you talk to the defense as well about maybe having to change some of the things that they do?
I haven't. Are you talking about with Colton's injury?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like if the offense has to change, if the defense has to do some things different.
I haven't.
Besides keeping the team from scoring fewer points.
No, I mean I think that there's. I haven't addressed Colton's injury with the team at all. I mean, I haven't talked to him about, now you've got to do this or you've got to do that, or everybody understands that there's some changes that are going to happen, and we've got to handle those maturely. But the reality of it is, I think I want the defense, regardless of whether Colton's healthy or not, to play great football, and the game will dictate a little bit about whether you're going to transition more so than a person being out. Okay, the game dictates it in relation to, are we scoring? Does that impacts the defense? Obviously, are we not scoring? That impacts the defensive calls too. So and conversely, the offense has got to play off the defense, and so every week there's this play out of the game. Every Monday morning I meet with the coordinators and we talk about how we'd like to see the game play out. But we all recognize, too, that very rarely does it play out to perfection. It plays out in a lot of different ways. And that you got to be prepared for all those transitions in-game also.
You said a lot of times that when Colton's out there, I know we talked about this, that he brings hope, because everybody can look around and go, okay, if I miss one more play, then this guy will find some way to do it. If you had to think of a word for when Brayle's out there, what would maybe he bring to the table, or even some guys around him? Who are some guys who maybe bring certain characteristics that help the overall team?
Hope's a powerful thing, as I've mentioned before, because when you've got a guy that everybody just, keep playing, right, because the guy's going to find a way to make a play. Hope's a powerful thing. And I think that I don't even know who to pick in relation to kind of going down through and say, okay, here's this attribute. I mean, because everybody has some different strengths and has different weaknesses. I do. Everybody does. And I think probably for Brayle, and I'll answer that one because you were pointed about that one. I think what Brayle probably brings and that the team kind of recognizes is this this passion. Bad word for a football player, maybe, I don't know. But that's probably the most descriptive. Brayle, he loves the game. Okay? And the more the game gets physical, the more he likes it. That's generally good football players. And the more physical the game is, the more he likes it. And as we've talked before, sometimes I have to kind of calm him down a little bit like that because the guy that tends to be the most physical is not necessarily, you don't always want him to be your quarterback. And he's tended to be that in scrimmages before and all that kind of thing. And he's settled down along those lines. He's learned from those experiences.
This is my last question, I promise. But
okay.
So trading hope for passion, is it kind of indicative of your team? Because between the low point of losing to Tulane and losing Colton, maybe that hope and optimism of having this great season like last year where you beat a top 25 team and all that stuff, now maybe the passion of everybody has to come out because you just love to play the game, and that's the way that you're going to end up achieving some of these goals that are still in front of you?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? There's this team's got great heart, and as I told them, and I truly, I don't want to coach anybody but this team. I won't trade them for anybody because I know what their hearts are like, and their hearts are right. There's some things that we got to get fixed, and that's my job. Okay, it's not their fault; that's my fault, and so I take full accountability for that. But again, does this spur us forward? That's the question, isn't it? And so the answer is going to come on Thursday. and then that's when I'll know if there's again, it's not going to be based off of me waving a magic wand. It'll be based off of them kind of coming to that decision and me doing a better job with them. And so we'll see. Anything else?
Any other questions for Coach Berry?
Okay.
Thanks, Coach.
Great.
Thanks, Coach.
No,
Next
picture
up.
him Brayle on a Harlequin novel, like passion.
Only you would come up with that.
No, you said the wrong word.
I was walking out of the room.
Oh, I thought you were saying you usually stay. I'd never say it behind your back. But you said bad choice of words. That's the first thing that popped into my mind.
You know where your head's at.
Next up, sophomore quarterback Brayle Brown. Floor is open for questions.
Before Tabby answers it, how passionate are you? Describe the week of practice Sunday and Monday. Obviously, it's a different perspective for you getting ready for a football game.
It is. Well, I prepare every week, like personally, like I'm gonna play, because like I've been told, like you're one play away from playing. And but this week the playmakers showed up. I feel like more so than the last few weeks, and we hit the clear button after the game, and that was good to see so soon.
Did you guys have as maybe a players, one of those come to Jesus meetings without coach, realizing that where you guys are and where you got to get back to?
Yeah, I mean, with that, I mean, somebody doesn't have to tell you. I mean, you can see what we need. I mean, we're better than what we've been playing, obviously, and people realize that. And after the game, people stayed, I mean, an hour, 2 hours after the game, just talking, and I think that helped. And we just came out Sunday and we had a really good practice. It was good to see.
You know, you've wanted this opportunity. This isn't the way you really dreamed of it happening, but now that it's here, can you imagine what Thursday night's going to be like for you?
Yeah, like you said, I've been waiting for this for 3 years now, and I mean I'm excited. I hate for Colton that happened to him. I mean he's been a great leader, great mentor for me personally, but I'm excited and I can't wait.
We've seen you very limited time. If you had to describe your style to a fan out there, what would it be?
I'm kind of balanced, if I would say. I like to run, but people tell me I'm not very fast. But I like to run just because Coach said I like to get physical, but I can throw also, just balance.
You could be Cody Wells in a race, right?
Yeah. Hopefully.
We talked Sunday, and this was after Colton had come to practice and then left because his injury was bothering him. But since Sunday, and he got the news yesterday, he came out. Have y'all sat down and talked, and was he a part of meetings and just kind of telling you some different tidbits?
Yeah, well, I haven't talked to him about Western, but I've talked to him after the game at Tulane, and we didn't really talk. We just hugged for about 30 seconds, and I mean, no, we haven't talked. He's just always there. He's going to be there. He's just there signaling, like Coach said, and just like another coach on the field.
How has he made you a better player from watching him, being in a room with him, and like Coach Berry talking about, y'all like to argue about different things y'all see on film? Well,
the thing I like about Colton that I realized the first few months I was here is he gives 10 other players on the field confidence that they're going to win, no matter what the situation is, and I like that about him. That's what a quarterback should do.
Is that something that you try now that you are in this role? Something that you're going to try to bring about as well? You've watched you for so long, to try to get 10 other guys.
Yeah, well, as a quarterback, that's something that you should have anyway. I feel like, and you just gotta. And Colton, he was so good at what he did, and he was one of the best in the country, and he was a good mentor. I was lucky to be behind him.
What's Western Kentucky's defense look like?
They're good. They have a really good middle linebacker. I guess he's All-American preseason. They fly around. They're really physical, and they're well coached. It's gonna be a good challenge.
Any other questions for Brayle?
Good luck on Thursday, bro.
Thank you.
You're so soft-spoken. I used to see you yelling out in practice.
No more passion questions.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going
Twitter where the University of Texas A&D just stepped down.
Mm.
He didn't want that to do the job at the end of the year.
Somebody Earl Campbell coming out like that.
Next up, senior linebacker Cam Lakes. Floor is open for questions.
Well, Cam, you're one of the leaders on this team. What's your message to your teammates as you get ready for just a huge week, considering what you guys have done the last 2 weeks?
This is, from this point out, we control our own destiny. This is a good team we face and love to run the ball, a real pro-style team, and, we just got to come ready to play.
A lot of the focus has been on the offense, of course, with Colton being hurt, but defensively, no disrespect to Tulane, but, they kind of had their way against you guys. What went wrong in that game, and what do you need to improve for Western Kentucky?
A lot of it was poor tackling on defense. Missed a lot of tackles, including myself. And as a defense, we worked hard. We went back to the fundamentals this week of practice and got everything straightened out. West Kentucky has a similar offense as Tulane, and I'm sure they're going to look at that film and think they can run the ball. And it's up to us to prove them wrong.
Jim, at the beginning of the year, we talked about you go to Walmart, people were patting you on the back, and I know things have probably been a little different the last couple of weeks. Maybe some people jumping off that bandwagon. Do you have anything to say to those fans?
It's their decision, but how we look at it, a couple years back, it was just us, nobody really gave us a shot, between anybody, and right now it's like that right now, and we understand, and we appreciate all our fans that still, was there from day one, and we're going to get this thing back on track for them.
You guys have never been a rah-rah team in regard to jumping up and so on and so forth, but with the experiences of this ball club, you guys always seem to be ready to play. It was early in that ball game Saturday night where you could sense it, and I think the fans did too, and even on the sideline, you guys weren't emotionally ready to play that football game.
Yes.
How do you think that was, or did you sense it coming up through the course of the week?
We had a couple bad practices throughout last week. We didn't come out there as energized as we was, not having that chip on our shoulder. And, when you have a bad week of practice, most of the time you're going to have a bad game. And that's what happened. We didn't show up for practice, and it showed in the game.
That big running back they have, I think he had 32 carries the other day against Navy, so obviously he's their workhorse, and they haven't thrown the home run ball a whole lot this year, so you guys focusing obviously on shutting down that big boy coming out of the backfield.
Anytime you got a running back as good as he is, you definitely got to, scheme around him because he can hurt you in so many ways, and he's also a good catcher, and he's a punt returner. He can do a lot of things other than just, coming out the backfield. So he's a big part of our game plan this week, and just keeping him those big plays bottled, I think we'll be fine.
Cam, I saw we're going to be moving back out to the outside.
Yeah.
Being a guy, you might come off that edge there. You look, okay, just from the smile on your face, looks like that might be something that you enjoy.
Yeah. Now I can get back to, what I do, and, I like to rush the quarterback, and I like being on the edge. That's what I started my career at here, and, I'm back where it's like back being at home, and it's a lot less thinking, as being Mike, and I tip my hat to Hunter Kissinger because he's a smart player. A lot of those games I come back, I'm like, Hunter, this gap right here, and he'll tell me and let me know what's going on. So, by him being out there, it's a great addition to the starting defense.
Do you think that you being out there on the edge, that will help to shut down the running game even more because you'll be able to kind of maybe get freed up a little bit better?
Yes, I think it'll help out a whole lot because, I can, bring my pass rushing abilities and, a little more experience off the edge. And Cody Robinson, all those guys did a good job. And sometimes I think it's just as far as like, the physical part of it, And I've been there, I was, I came here 200 pounds, so I've been there. So, and it's just, just maturity when it comes down to those type of positions. And that's why I think, I can be a great help at, there.
Last time you guys were on national TV was obviously the bowl game, and then it was Baylor and Arkansas prior to that. So this is an opportunity come Thursday night to get back in front of the country, so to speak, a little bit and show you guys what you're made of a little bit. How exciting is that can be?
It's very exciting. We can showcase to the world that we're still that team from last year. We still play our heart out every down, and we still got this chip on our shoulder that we always we should have never left from us in the first place. We just want to show everybody we're a better team than what we've been showing these last couple of weeks.